Welcome to this week's episode of Interviews with Experts. And today I'm joined by Guy Remond. He's an investor, an entrepreneur, an author of many different books and blogs, and he's a podcast host. I'm going to let Guy give you a far better introduction in just a sec. And today we are going to be discussing, is content relevant to any industry? But first, Guy, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for inviting me, Georgia. You've kind of summed it up. I've got two or three businesses which I play a key role in. So I'm a founder and investor and a director of those businesses. And I work as an investor and chairman of one or two other businesses as well, and act as an advisor for those businesses.
Brilliant, thank you. And this question is a really good one, because is content relevant to any industry? I think there is still an opinion, perhaps, with a lot of entrepreneurs that content is attached to social media, which might be attached to a certain demographic, and that it couldn't work for them in the same way it can work for others. And I think there's also some stereotypes and perhaps some confusion around, influencers and brand building, and what does building a personal brand really mean, and where does content tie in? And I think so sometimes I've found that entrepreneurs can be a little hesitant to start putting out regular content, but to me it suggests that perhaps they're not fully clear on what they want that content to do. And I know, Guy, that you've used loads of different types of content in all different types of business settings. So it'll be brilliant that obviously you'll be able to add some different perspectives, and I'm sure you've got some stories to tell from that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I think one of the points you made around generating content, it's, generating expert content, will that work in every single business? And I think in the vast majority of cases the answer is yes. And just rewinding slightly, I think we've seen a step change in marketing over the last few years, and that's been accelerated hugely by COVID, because people have had to think of different ways to get their message across, and it's had to be digital. They've not been able to run the in-person events. They've not been able to meet in a coffee shop as often with people. They've not been able to go to the office as often. They've not been able to go to other people's offices as often. And actually, some of those problems will still exist after COVID, because some people won't have an office anymore because they've made that decision. They don't need one, and it is a case of meeting in a coffee shop or in a hotel lobby, or wherever it is that people want meetings, and that's absolutely fine. So I do think there's been a step change in that side of things. And if I'm honest, we started. I'm thinking probably 2006. And I say we, actually it was totally my team and not me, and it was their idea, decided to write a book on some of the technologies that we were specializing in. And that kind of snowballed, and we ended up authoring 6 or 7 books, and we became famous on the back of those books because they were in niches in certain areas of technology. So you combine that back in the day before blogs, with then, on the back of those books and our expertise, we were able to go to conferences, and the Tech Centre had lots of conferences in their particular areas of technology. And at first you'd have to apply to go to a conference and speak, but then actually as you became more well known, and particularly on the back of the books as well, then you got invited. And that was a really early example back in sort of the before 2010 really of how people used expert content to generate business. And as you're fully aware, and I talked about on blogs and podcasts previously, that we made a decision that we didn't want to run a sales team. It's just not something I personally wanted to do, or we didn't have the skill set in the business, and it wasn't something I wanted to hire for. I felt that we could do it through expert content. And it's not just in the tech business, it can be in any business. So we've kind of moved that on, and we picked up on blogs probably from something like 2012, 2013 onwards. Over a 5-6 year period, we'd written 700 blogs as a company. And that's all we needed for sales. That's all we needed for recruitment. It brought people in from a recruitment perspective. And to take that on to the next stage, that company was sold, and I've set up new companies now, and they're all in different areas. One is a legal platform that we're building, so a totally different sector, albeit technology led. And my other company, or the two companies, one is one called the Startup Factory that practices what I'm preaching now, and it's something that I initiated within the company, where we do weekly podcasts and we do weekly blogs, and we do try and do occasional webinars and in-person events when we're allowed, and that kind of thing. So again, expert content, and that is in the tech space again. But my other company, EHE Capital, I've just come off doing a couple of podcasts with my my partner in crime, Gary Fletcher, and that's in the funding sector. So again, another area, and we are not for profit, and they write blogs as a way of showing their expertise in the finance world, and plenty of other examples I could give where I've advised people that this is a really good way of marketing. But actually, since COVID, I think so many people are doing it now because it's their only outlet to generate sales.
Yeah, I think that's a really key point as well, isn't it? Like our face-to-face contact with our clients, our prospective clients, our entire business community was just wiped out overnight last year. And it has to be replaced by something. If people are just sitting around waiting for things to go back to normal, I think they're going to disappear. I really do. And I think it's not now, should we start a content marketing strategy, or should we? Don't be put off by any sort of, the keywords or the buzz phrases or whatever, but you have to be putting something out there somewhere. You really do. It doesn't have to be complicated. But as you say, Guy, just a weekly article on LinkedIn or on your website. But I think also what people may be fully aware of at this point is how much one piece of content can be used. Because I know I get asked a lot, we would have done content, but it's this whole thing and we don't have the time. And actually, if you've got 1,000-word blog article, which is 2 sides of A4, like what entrepreneur couldn't produce 7 minutes or 10 minutes of speech on just one part of what they do? It's so easy to produce, and then you've got all of the quotes from that to your social media posts. They can go on all different platforms. You can use free scheduling software, so you're not doing one thing 3 times, you're just doing it once. Actually, if you were to speak your blog, then that would be essentially a podcast episode, or at least audio for your site. And then you can put those things together to create books. And so I think like the content systems that you use, Guy, and that you describe, really, really powerful. And I think it's good for people to understand that they can work together rather than, like you didn't do just a blog or just that one book, did you? Your team at Cake did all kinds of different things, and you used them together.
We did, and that's an important point. We made content work really hard. So if we had a particular subject we wanted to talk about, or a particular thing that we were doing at that particular point, maybe we were quite big into research and development projects, and then talking about them and helping other people benefit from that research and development. And actually, years ago, companies, and there are still plenty of companies out there that have this mentality, but they're becoming fewer. No, they didn't like giving expert content away because they felt like they were giving the crown jewels away. And I think that's absolutely not the case. You can help people and allow people to do their own thing, but they'll get to a point where their business grows to a size where they don't want to do that themselves, and they'll come to you anyway, or they don't have all the elements that they need to make what they want to do a reality, so they'll still come to you. So the amount of business you lose because you're giving away expert content is actually in reality pretty low, and it's probably the kind of business you don't want in the first place. Anyway,
if they're going to do it themselves or they want it for free, then you don't want to be working with people and charging people money where they're begrudging it. So that's just it, isn't it? But I think when I look at now all the different types of books and blogs and podcasts we're doing it with Right Business Results, I'm just actually looking at the on our system here, and in terms of like any industry, I mean, gosh, we've got someone in the legal sector, we've got Well, I mean, people in the financial services sector, someone who runs a charity, people in leadership positions. It honestly, it goes people doing NLP, people in communications. There's a really, really massive range, mindset, even dog breathing. So it really does. It does go for any topic in any industry. I think what I've learned through, the last 5 years of working with people on their content is that what's important is the process that you use. So if you go at it like a scattergun approach, and you just kind of palm off a blog here and do a podcast there, then obviously you're not going to get great results. There's no consistency. There's no leverage in it. I don't know. What do you think to that in terms of a structured way of doing it?
Yeah, I think the thing we haven't talked about yet, actually, which kind of comes in to help answer that question, is building personal brands. So all of this ultimately is either yourself and preferably your team as well, where you build a culture that allows and encourages people to build a personal brand, because it's great all round. It's great for the person concerned, because they have the opportunity to talk about the stuff that they love doing, and they get recognition for it actually within their community. It's great for the community because the community learns from that person, and it's great for your company because your company benefits on the back of your employees' reputation or your own reputation. So all those kind of things go together to build a personal brand. And something else that you just said actually just triggers something. So obviously with COVID at the moment, we can't meet up, and so we've got this young puppy, and we booked in dog training classes, so we're actually having dog training classes over Zoom at the moment. Which is amazing, and it works. It's they make a bad situation really good, and it does work. But that's not the point. The point is here that the one of the things that the instructors encourage you to do to help them with their business is they encourage you to take videos of your dog and post it on their Facebook page, and that way they can check that you're doing things correctly and so on and so forth. But it also provides really useful content for their page. So that's another really good example of something as diverse as dog training, how they can use content to promote their business.
That's fantastic, isn't it? Because actually, that's a really good point. The content, when we talk about social media and books and blogs and podcasts, that's very front stage. That's very like what people see to get introduced to a company or to find out more about them and get those. But actually, like you say, you can deliver in this fashion as well. You can create content that may used to have been a one-to-one face-to-face service. You can actually create content in the form of training programs. Online courses would be an extension of that. So there really is everything. Content isn't just these kind of time-consuming keeping up accounts and profiles, but it's something you can instill into all of your processes throughout the business.
And if
as well.
Sorry to interrupt. If you can encourage your clients to do it as well for you, wow, that doesn't cost you anything. They get something out of it because you give them feedback on what they're seeing, but also again, it's promoting your business. It's providing lots of content, and actually that kind of things can be quite fun because it's because it's unprofessional, and because it's kind of sometimes spur of the moment, and because they say that you should never work with children and animals, then things will probably go wrong. It's entertaining, but it's building your brand. So there's lots of, like you say, lots of different ways of generating content. It could be your partners, your business partners, other companies that you work with. In other words, it could be your clients, and it could be you, or it could be members of your team. So there's tons of ways to do it. It doesn't have to be a millstone around your neck. All you've got to do is create the culture within your company, to your team, to your business partnerships, to even your clients, where everyone pulls together, and there's something in it for everybody. That's one of the key things, by the way. Generate something where there's something in it for everybody, because then you really don't have to work too hard for it to get done. And you kind of touched on the whole kind of influencer thing at the moment, which is an interesting one. But in reality, I joked the other day to Gary, our first podcast was published to Spotify and I think Google Podcasts or whatever it's called. And I joked to Gary, I said, Gary would become influencers. But joking aside, the influence come in all sorts of different forms. They're not just YouTubers, they're not just people who get sent clothes that they wear and advertise and you can click through. You can become an influencer within your business sector by sharing your expertise and giving added value. And the added value thing's a really important point. Throughout my whole business career, I've always believed that I will help people before I expect help back from them, or before I expect anything back from them. And I've always done that. And generating expert content is absolutely, fits into that kind of philosophy and way of doing things.
Yeah, definitely. And you're absolutely right as well. It is having that kind of, it's a way of thinking, and it should be a part of what you do. I know obviously with last year, with what happened, you do find when things go into crisis mode, one of the first budgets that businesses typically tend to look at is things like marketing and its training. When it comes to marketing, my God, if you can't see anybody and nobody can see you, it's the last thing you should stop doing, because otherwise how will anyone even find you? You can't just have like some website hanging around when everyone else has gone online. You've got to be doing something. But like you say, it's about making it easy rather than something that is hard to keep up with on a regular basis.
It is, and the thing I've really I struggle to understand a little bit is when companies have had to, because of the sector they're in, it is heavily affected by COVID, and there are plenty of businesses out there that have really struggled over this period. However, you could use that as an opportunity to really promote your business. Look at your website, look at the way that you present yourself to the outside world, look at your Twitter account and your Facebook page, overhaul it all, get the messaging, think about new things you could do, new services you could offer that kind of fit into this new world, because things will have changed permanently in some cases when we come out of this, as hopefully we're at the beginning of the end, as everyone seems to be thinking at the moment, and I agree with that. Take the opportunity and write a book or write some blogs and really put yourself out there, and don't stop. When things start to get busy again, make it part of your working day, make it part of your team's working day, and that's the way to do it. It has to be embedded in your culture.
This is a really good point, because this is all about the making it easy side of it. And, like we say, put yourself out there, write this, do that. But, for a lot of people, it's even that sounds like quite a big challenge. Obviously, it can be outsourced. It's not always easy to find the right person to do that. For those listening, if you're thinking that, contact me, because it's what we do, and that might be something that works for you. But there are all sorts of options out there at the same time, so you can do that. But for people who really just want to get to grips with this, and like you say, embedding it in a culture can make this an internal skill set that the company wouldn't have otherwise have had. So can we talk a bit more about some of the ways that an entrepreneur can start, say if they've already got a team in place and they've realized, okay, I want to get culture really, content creation really embedded in what we do. It's important. That's quite a tricky thing to suddenly say to employees, or you might get people going, oh, it's not part of what I'm here to do, or it's time consuming. How am I going to fit it in? Do you have any tips for ways to do that?
Yeah, I mean, we faced all those problems, and it took time and it took persistence. It was led actually by our CTO, so it needs to be led, I think, by a senior member of the team to demonstrate what can be achieved. And when people start seeing results, that in itself is a motivation. We also offered just a little bit of fun in a way, but actually people really appreciated it. We offered incentives, and people, when there was various ways that we generated content as a company. You could do a lunch and learn, something as simple and as inoffensive as that within the company to a group of your peers. You could do a user group talk in your local area to maybe tens of people, or you could go to a conference and do a talk in front of maybe 100 or hundreds of people, and you could write a blog, and you could participate in writing a book. You could get involved in an open source project that you then spoke about in all the ways I've just mentioned. So what we did was we awarded points for them. So a conference, obviously it's a big thing, you got most points for that. So people accumulated points, and whenever we had a conference that we sponsored, and when we sponsored them, we generally got tickets to attend as well as part of that package. We'd take the people that had really done well and worked hard at, sometimes in their own time as well as in work's time, and produce content that benefited not just themselves but the company. So you can incentivize it. And we also used to have a monthly kind of draw. Whoever had the most points, if there wasn't a conference, then we'd have a prize at the end of it, something like maybe an Amazon Alexa or something along those lines, something gadgety. Normally always went down well. So I think there's ways you can incentivize it, and I think once you get that momentum and you get that, people automatically start doing it, then that actually spreads. Not everybody's going to do it in your company, and I think you have to accept that, and that's fine. If people don't want to do it, I'm all right with that. But maybe 30% of our company used to do stuff on a regular basis, and that adds up. So you're getting 10, 20 people doing stuff on a regular basis. That's a lot of content generation. And I think also then once you've got that established, then you use it as a sales tool when you're talking to people who want to join your company as part of the recruitment process. So we'd say, look, we have a great platform here. We're a well-known company in the areas that we're experts in, and we encourage people to build personal brands. We're not afraid of it. We want people to put their head above the parapet and say interesting stuff and help people outside of the company and help the community. And actually people really enjoyed that, and it's sometimes one of the main reasons why they join us as an organization. And usually where they'd heard about us in the first place, they'd been to a conference, or they'd read a blog, or they'd listened more recently to a podcast, or they'd been to a user group, or whatever it was. They'd heard about us, and usually actually they'd that had happened in multiple places. So it's a really powerful recruitment tool. Saves you on recruitment, saves you on sales, and actually it's a sticky reason for people to stay with your company. It's a reason people really value. So there's very few downsides.
Well, that's true. I mean, because we're the team here at Right Business Results are starting to do the same thing. And actually, what you then also create is a situation where it's the capability on your team is easily demonstrated. And so you can see that it's not just the business owner that set the company up that's the expert. Actually, everybody that works in that company is an expert of their individual domain. And some people don't like to have their employees so on show like that with all of their strengths, and maybe they get worried that might not end up being a good thing if they get poached or get made a better offer. But I think you've got, this might have even been in one of your books, Guy, the Richard Branson quote, where you train people well enough so that they can leave, but treat them well enough so that they don't want to.
That's exactly, very close to the quote, and spot on. And it's something I really believe in. And even before I heard that Richard Branson said that, that's effectively what we were doing. And a lot of companies are afraid that if they give their team a voice, that they'll leave and they'll be approached by recruiters. Well, the news is that they're going to get approached by recruiters anyway. And actually, if you give them a reason to stay, which is you're giving them this great platform to build their own personal brand and personal profile, and doing something that they love doing, why would they leave? There's no reason to leave. Our retention rate was just unbelievable. It was very, very low, despite us giving people that platform to
you had a fantastic
showcase their skills.
Company culture. I think back to when I was an employee, times when I didn't feel I had a voice, and that made me want to leave. So actually giving people, celebrating people for their talents and letting them demonstrate it, I think is very important.
Why on that point, Georgie, why would you want to go and work for a backward thinking company that didn't have that kind of philosophy?
Yeah, exactly. Where you don't have that same freedom. Yeah, exactly. It's mad. Yeah, so that's it. So many different points about the benefits of content in there. The original question is content relevant to any industry? Guy said in his personal opinion, yes.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. And I have to agree, and it's not just because we already agree on this and we're biased and whatever, but having been writing content for businesses every single day for 5 years that isn't an industry so far that I haven't been able to create content for. So if it's not something you're already doing, hopefully this has given some reasons at least to go away and start putting that plan together. But hoping everybody that's listening to this is really sold. It goes much further than just having a profile on a platform. And it's also even deeper than having an effective personal brand that attracts the best type of clients. It's also it's part of the foundations of how you build your business, and it runs as deep as team and attracting the best people, and that of course is your ability to deliver and compete. So it's very important. Thanks guys so much for all of your stories and thoughts.
No, yeah, that was a great summary.
Brilliant, thanks. And where can people find you guys as well? And I know you've obviously got many different places, but you're obviously working on something exciting at the moment, aren't you? Where can people find more?
Yeah, I mean, you can have a look at my name's fairly unique, so you'll actually find my name as my Twitter handle and Facebook and LinkedIn and so on. So just look for @Guy Remond, so GUY and then REMOND. And if you want to reach out via email, it's guyremond@gmail.com.
Perfect. Thanks, Guy, and thanks everyone for listening. See you next week.
Thanks, Georgia.